This is part 2 of the bonus episode brought to you by the following Big Dog Tier members: Carrie L., Faith Adams, Darlene King, Heather, Tina Lance, Brittany Harris, and Christina Cowman. Just a heads up, the episode starts off discussing the semen that was found on Mackenzie's body. And this is the part I've struggled with from the start of the podcast, is when to share this, how to share this. But we're here now. Remember when Mary Ann said this?
Why would you tell people that she was molested? Why would you tell people that she was drugged and dead before the fire and it was a cover-up? You know the facts? That child was never molested, never drugged.
When Montgomery County did the sexual assault rape kit, semen was found in 3 orifices: oral, anal, and vagina. I want to point out that the findings in the autopsy said that Mackenzie died with urine and stool in her body. This just tells me that she didn't use the bathroom or have anything to drink after the sexual assault to wash away the DNA. That rape had to happen just before the fire. The other thing to know about the sexual assault test is that the results were not known for 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. I know. I asked Vernon what happened that delayed this critical piece of information.
We got the results back inadvertently.
How'd that happen?
We've done numerous death investigations with him. So when he says we need to talk, Mackenzie was not what I figured we need to talk about. It was his voice. This was about Mackenzie. They now are claiming that she was sexually assaulted. Now they're saying the rape kit shows semen. Where has it been for the last 6 years? He said they put it in the wrong file. I said, what do you mean they put it in the wrong file? How do you put that in the wrong file? And I said, there has to be an explanation. And the explanation that was given when they were pressured, when they were confronted with this, what was that? When they brought Mackenzie in, initially she was brought in as a Fayette County death. And so they did Mackenzie's autopsy for Fayette County. They did all the reports. Mackenzie as a Fayette County death, an ID record case. We had the conversation, take her back, and when she comes back into the Montgomery County facility, she's coming in as a Montgomery County case, not a Fayette County case. But the people that did the swabs and the sexual assault kit, they're thinking this was ordered by their pathologist, not Dr. Gay. Dr. Gay ordered the original thing and said to the folks at Montgomery County, I'm asking you to do the autopsy of this person for me. And so whatever that happens, when they got her back the second time, they brought her in and his people asked, who is this? And the pathologist says, that's my case and I need a rape kit performed. And whoever did the rape kit, somebody from their facility, I'm not questioning that professionalism, but they said doctor, whatever the doctor's name was, I can't recall the doctor's name off the top of my head, the one that actually asked for it. Therefore, it's assumed to be a Montgomery County case. So they have the original autopsy under a Fayette County case. The sexual assault was filed away as a Montgomery County case, and they sat there in the file for 6 years.
How did you find out about the sexual assault?
What happened was when I called Ken Harshberger and I said I'd like for everything sent over to me, the autopsy photos, any reports, anything, because I was trying to find the report who destroyed the clothes. There was something signed and who signed it to have the clothes destroyed. When he sent everything over to me, that paper came to my house, a copy of what was found, the semen. When I read it, that's when I made another phone call to Ken Harshberger, and we talked about it. One of the things was Vernon didn't know nothing about it. He's a liar on that one, too. He didn't know nothing about it until I brought it to their attention. And I can prove this with my YouTube videos and everything, and what years I was doing them and when all this was coming out. So he's a liar on that. And the reason I can tell you is when I got the paperwork and I found out about it, and I was the first person they called and said, hey, we need you to come in here and give us your DNA. And I was like, for what? And they're like, for Mackenzie's case. And I said, okay, I'm on my way. He said, well, can you be here in 15 minutes? I mean, they are like rushing me, and which I didn't care. And I ran up there to the annex building, walked in, they swabbed me, broke it off, put it in a little glass tube, made me sign papers, they signed papers and everything, and then gave me a copy of where I took the DNA. Well, I don't know if that's another story or not, but when I got that copy, I was reading it. And I'm sitting and I'm reading it, and I'm like, well, this says they collected my DNA for fire and the death of Mackenzie. Nothing about the sexual assault. Never brought it up to me, never said, hey, this is what we're taking it for. And what people don't understand, I was cleared in 2009 by the fire marshal, U.S. fire marshal, and ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They're the ones that actually cleared me. And when they cleared me in 2009, still in 2012, they wanted my DNA. Mine. And I was the first person to give them the DNA.
But let me back up for a moment. So you got the reports, then DNA was taken, that a sexual assault was taken. So you call Ken and you get the results that it's positive?
Yes.
How long did the sheriff's office know that there was DNA before you found out?
I don't know when they found out. I have no clue other than when I brought it to their attention. That's when I actually started saying, hey, my kid, she's been sexually assaulted. She was raped. Because it said positive in 3 areas of my daughter's body. A kid that age shouldn't have no male semen on her at 8 years old. And that's when I brought it to Vernon Stanforth's attention. Then next thing I know, boom, I'm being brought down and saying, hey, we need your DNA.
So is it possible that you were the one who found it?
Same person that found the coroner's report. Me.
Is it possible that you got the documents, you found it, and then that's how it was discovered?
Yes. 6 years later, because I questioned Vernon and Ryan McFarland both right straight to their face. I said, how did this sit for 6 years? You requested a sexual assault. And in Vernon's own words, you heard him say it, to Dr. Gay, they thought, hey, we need a sexual assault. Vernon's saying he's the one that requested it. That's what he said in his statement to you. And him and Dr. Gay discussed it, and Dr. Gay made the phone call. But Vernon said that he was one. He wanted to make sure there was no loose ends, pretty much is what he's saying. But you don't even ask for the results that take, if anything, a year, maybe a year, and then you get the results back. And the thing of it is, it's dated September the 6th, 2006. The results came in. April 27th, 2006, Mackenzie's murdered. August 15th, 2006, the clothes were destroyed. September the 6th, 2006, that results are in. So it was only 5 months and they already had the results in saying that she was sexually assaulted, that they found male semen on her.
And the clothes were destroyed in August.
August 15th, 2006. So in 4 months, clothes are destroyed. On September 6th, here comes the results. You already destroyed the clothes that that child had on that night that was sexually assaulted and didn't even know the answers to that results because they didn't come until a month after. A month after.
I think the big part there is that it was already determined to be a homicide, arson, and you're destroying clothes for an active homicide case.
Right.
Okay.
Amen. Amen.
Just want to make that clear to everyone.
But this is a sheriff we got for 29 years.
Lucky you. Here we go.
This really helps us understand what happened and the why behind the 6-year gap. But I still question, why did no one from Fayette County follow up in 6 years to ask about the results? Dr. Gay himself called and asked Montgomery County to do the kit, Fayette County was aware the test was being done. So Fayette County just assumed the results were negative. No one followed up to see what the results were. And I have to say this, when I spoke with Dr. Harshberger about this huge error, he immediately took ownership, which I respect a lot. He admitted this is what happened, and since it was his department, he would take ownership. I found him to be very sincere, and he understood the role his office had in the mix-up. He didn't blame anyone else, he just said, I own this part. The thing with mistakes is no matter how long ago or what the situation was, if you can admit you or someone messed up, things did not go as planned, you gain way more respect from people than continuing to lie and cover it up. There is always time to do the right thing. You can move forward. It's time for everyone involved in Mackenzie's case to follow Dr. Harshberger's lead. So what's been your experience with Dr. Harshberger? He had the same reaction and very apologetic to you?
Yes. I can say one thing about Ken Harshberger. When I made that phone call, I would say, in my view, that he took his robe off and said, I'm a father. I'm going to answer as a father's question. Father to father. He owned up to what they did. He said they stepped out of the box and they shouldn't. I asked him about the DNA. Why was my DNA taken? And his exact words was, they shouldn't have done you. That don't make no sense. But they did. And I said, well, Vernon said they sent my DNA into CODIS. And he said, there is no CODIS. There wasn't enough numbers to have it in CODIS. And I said, well, then why in the world did he put my DNA in the CODIS? And he's like, probably for other reasons. He told me straight. He was honest as he could be. He took the blame, but he did make the comment. He said, we messed up. We messed up on this, but we're not the only ones that messed up. And he made that comment to me. And then I asked him about, well, why? And then his exact words, word for word. And that's when I knew everything. That's when all my answers started like clicking into my mind. His exact words was, Donald, the fire was to cover up the sexual assault. That was out of that man's own mouth. And that's a professional. That's a man that sees this stuff every day. Vernon don't see this stuff every day. Right. He don't see a child dying in a fire every day. But a coroner sees this every day. They live in Montgomery County is Dayton, Ohio. They're ranked number 2 on crimes and stuff. This man sees this stuff every day, told what to look for and everything. Now, here's the funniest part about that whole thing that you just played. Vernon's sitting there saying, I think about this every day. I question this every day. This is a number 1 priority. But he can't even remember the man that did the semen test, found the DNA. His name is Dr. Fannin. And ain't it funny that I know that name? I know who the doctor was. I know who destroyed the clothes. I can give you that guy's name. I can tell you Ken Harshberger's name. I can tell you everybody's name. But you're sitting there telling everybody that you think about this every day. Well, here's the big question I like to leave everybody. And honestly, I would love to leave this with everybody. Instead of worrying about me being a nice guy or I'm not a nice guy, or I'm a mean person, and worried about my relationship with her mom, you should be asking the people, why didn't you send this? Why didn't you ask for this? And even in his own department, he should be asking the people that supposedly worked in this case, why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you do this? And him saying he had that conversation with Ken Harshberger and all that, and he wanted to know why this was put in the file and all this stuff. And Montgomery County beat around the bush until they forced it on them. He's a liar. He's a liar. Because let me tell you something. When I asked Ken Harshberger, he was honest and true, right straight to the statement. He didn't hide a damn thing. He didn't beat around the bush. He said, this is what happened. We take ownership of. He told me that. I didn't have to force that man to tell me nothing. He told me straight up. And for a man to put his whole life, career, everything, Montgomery County on the line like that, I have more respect for that man than I do my own sheriff in this Fayette County. He ain't done nothing but hide shit, lied about shit, and he's still lying. And it's hard. It is hard for me to listen to these episodes because all this is new to me. This is stuff that Dog with the Bone and Melissa and Mary and you guys have found that I didn't find, that I didn't get. That's why a lot of people believe in that second eye. It's always good for somebody else to look at a case. And I'm hearing this just like everybody else. But I can tell you, hearing these episodes and listening to like Vernon, man, and I'm sitting there boring. Like, man, you're full of shit, dude. You can't even still. The community that voted you in, you can't even tell them the truth, man. You can't even say, okay, we screwed up, Donald. Yes, we screwed up. We dropped the ball here. Instead, you want to put me down and call me a disgruntled father and not a nice guy and everything else, instead of just saying, if I was in the wrong, I would tell you I was in the wrong. I ain't got nothing to hide. And that's the only thing. My voice is loud because I ain't got nothing to hide. And back in the other part of this, when he said, man, don't have to answer nothing. Bullshit. That's where the murder and the rape of my child happened at. She should be the one answering more questions than me. And for the viewers out there and people to know, I have been interviewed, and I talked to you about this, Melissa. I've been interviewed 17 times. ATF, U.S. Fire Marshals, FBI, BCI, 6 different people at BCI. The Fayette County Sheriff's Office, 3 from the Fayette County Sheriff's Office have interviewed me. Vernon's interviewed me. The fire marshals interviewed me. Another fire marshal's interviewed me. And she's only been interviewed 1 time. It is like, man, why are you going to sit there and lie to people? You're going to get caught. You're going to get caught in your lie. And what you have come across and what I have built since 2017 and all the stuff I've collected and stuff, he's stupid to even make a comment because we have the answer already. We already have it in black and white, photographs. We can prove everything that comes out of that man's mouth a lie. We can literally prove his lies. And that's what I said. My blue notebook against what they've got is shameful. It's shameful that the father has more evidence than they do. And you're telling everybody you've been working on this every day. If that's true, Melissa come up with people her own self, witnesses that's never been spoke to. So you're not doing your job. You're not doing your job. Other people are doing your job for you. That's the problem. Everybody else is doing their job, and we're the ones that have to live it. I've always said this. When I went to bed, I wish I could go to bed and close my eyes and see Mackenzie, 8 years old, her little brown hair blowing in the wind and a smile. I say, no. When I close my eye, I have to see the exhuming photographs, the autopsy photographs, and the only person to blame for that is my sheriff, because he's the one that put me into that position where I had to investigate my own child's death because of the lies. And it's hard because my memories of my kid is what everybody's seeing right now. That's my memories of Mackenzie. And it kills me that he's going to sit there. And it's funny because through that whole interview, from what you played, he brought me up more than he did anything else. He never gave a straight answer. He stuttered. He brought up about me and the domestic and all. It has nothing to do with this case. Has nothing to do with this case. I've been cleared. Has Mary Ann and Kenny been cleared? No. Has William Potter been cleared? No. Has anybody been cleared? No. That's a known fact. No one's been cleared on this case except for me.
When I asked Vernon about the semen in 3 places on an 8-year-old and if lie detectors were given to Marianne, Kenny, Jamie, and William, since we know all 4 of these individuals were in the home that night prior to the fire being started, here's what he had to say.
I don't know if I can answer that specifically without looking.
I know they did a lie detector about the fire, but my question is the sexual assault. We know that happened.
No, we don't.
Well, don't you have semen?
We have semen.
So she was sexually assaulted.
We don't know that.
Why would an 8-year-old consent to sex?
Again, we don't know that.
If you could have seen Mary and my face when he made this comment, what 8-year-old gives consent for sex? But let's say in some crazy world she did. That's still a crime. When you hear that, Donald, what is your initial thought?
That would probably give me 10 to 20. Yeah. Wow. For a sheriff to sit there knowing facts are in front of them, knowing there's facts, knowing this is a professional lab, they deal with this every day. And like I said, it's in Montgomery County in Dayton, Ohio, which is number 2 in homicides and all this stuff in Ohio. With this being that kind of evidence coming from a lab like that, and for him to sit there and say that there's not, that's pretty much what he's saying. And he knows there is. And he knows where it's found. I noticed later on here in a little bit, you're going to keep playing. And I know it's good because he contradicts his own self on that. But it really, I'll be honest with you, it made me anger, but also it hurt me because I'm thinking, who the hell's investigating my daughter's death? That you got facts in front of you and you're still denying it. You're calling Montgomery County, the fire marshal, all these people liars. You're saying that they don't know their professional job.
Because we didn't know she was sexually assaulted for years after the death.
So you didn't do a sexual assault kit that night at the hospital?
We never do a sexual assault kit.
The medical examiner didn't?
The coroner did. When he did the autopsy, there was a lot of heat and smoke damage. And the question was asked, was she sexually assaulted? Well, no, they would have said so. I said, did they do a sexual assault kit? Then I called them to find out. But whenever they did, they found out that it was poor quality. And the elements in that, that's what we've been struggling with for years, are the markers. I think the way it was explained to me from recollection, they typically have to have 11 markers to get an identification, and hers only had 4. So they knew it was a male, but the way that they hit me is, that's only 4 markers. That could be 1 million men. It could be 5 million. Each marker, you're eliminating another group of people through DNA, but they knew that it was male.
What do you got on that, Donald?
Right there, that's where he contradicts himself. In the beginning, when you asked him about it, he stated that, no, we don't know that. No, we don't know that. No, we don't know that. But then he stated, I contacted them to make sure they did a sexual assault kit. That tells me you even made that phone call, but never in 6 years asked for those results. And the way he's explaining that story to you about the sexual assault, he knew about the sexual assault. He's repeatedly saying, we demanded that sexual assault kit to be done. Then you never asked for it for 6 years, including himself. He right there stated, I made that phone call. But then you didn't make no phone calls after that to find out if it came in. So then he said they found male, Y chromosome. A head ago, he said, we don't know that. We don't know that. He sounds like a broken record, and then he contradicts his own self. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm being honest, and I hope the viewers hear this. I think he's related to Marianne. Those two can tell a lie, live on that lie, even sit there and tell you, hey, yeah, I know this is fact, knowing it's a lie. That's the whole part about this. I personally personally feel that Vernon Stanforth should be investigated himself on all of this, on all of it. The murder, the fire, the rape. I feel right now, after hearing just those parts, he should be investigated. 110%, he should be investigated. Because he contradicts himself. It's almost like I said this before. He's protecting and he's playing out Marianne to be a victim. He made that clear with the history of Donald Branham and Marion. He made it clear that he's protecting the ones that were in that house. There was nobody else that was in that house. We got 4 people. We got 3 of them that said we were home. We know that for a fact. Marianne, Kenny, and Jamie all made a statement straight out. Yep, I was there. Boom. I was there within minutes to hour of that fire. But we got 3 people we know for a fact that admitted being in that home. Admitted seeing Mackenzie go to bed that night.
One of the things I'm thinking here, and I'm reading between the lines of what he could even be suggesting here. Because first he's saying, we don't know that. We don't know if we have a sexual assault. And I'm like, don't you have semen? Yes. Then he says, well, we have male semen. So you do know it's a sexual assault to have male semen.
Right.
If I'm trying to read between, and my husband brought this up as well, he said, do you know what he's actually trying to say or what he's suggesting? And I'm like, what? And my husband's like, to my husband, he's suggesting that Mackenzie was possibly raped in between after her death. Is it possible the funeral home? Is it possible somebody else had access to her that it got on her? But
the good part about that is BCI, known fact, tested the funeral home people's DNA.
Yes.
The ones that took Mackenzie to Montgomery County and back. They also tested the ones that were in the ambulance that night with her. And they all were not. They were not.
Right.
Boom. That crushes that part. But that's a good theory. I thought the same thing too. Well, because you see it.
You see it at the funeral home corners. It happens.
Right.
My whole point in all of this too is my husband had a good thought and I said to him, well, actually, no, he didn't know this, that the funeral home and them were tested. That's absolutely correct. So Vernon knows that now. And so why is he still insinuating that we don't have one? How else would it have gotten there when you know that it was there and it wasn't anybody who had any interaction with her after she was pulled out of that house?
Well, the biggest question here is, this is where it contradicts his story. If you're sitting there saying, well, we don't know that. We don't know that. Then you say, we know there was male glycorism, but it was not strong, which I know that. Ken Harshberger told me that. It was enough to do what they did. But the thing of it is, why would you exhume her? Vernon's the one. He made that statement. He come to my house in my garage and said, hey, tomorrow morning we're digging up your daughter. We're exhuming her to see if we can find more DNA. He just sat right there and told you in 2025, 19 years later, he said, well, we don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know that. But you exhumed her. You know they collected DNA because you were involved in that one 110%. You made sure that that's why it was done where it was done. And Fayette County had custody of that DNA. Then you sent it to BCI.
And I think, too, and that'll be the whole thing on the exhuming, but getting back to why he's saying, no, we don't, no, we don't. What could he possibly think why it's not there? It makes no sense because he already has 19 years of info that says it happened.
Well, he's got a lab that says it's there. You brought everybody in 2012, supposedly, and collected their DNA. Why would you collect everybody's DNA if there wasn't none there?
Well, and just why are you insinuating or saying you're not sure? No, clearly you are sure.
Right. And that's where I'm going back to, like I said. Why are you protecting the mother? That's my biggest question. And I tell you what, if I ever get that answer, somebody will be a millionaire. Because that's the biggest question here. Why are you protecting Marianne? Listen, when you did this interview with him, boom, he protected her on not asking if anything come up about Mackenzie. Have you guys got any further into this case? Did you find out who tried to murder me? He protected her there. He protected her on the domestic part. It was Donald, not Mary Ann. But Mary Ann didn't have custody of her kid. He knew that. So did his wife. His wife ran the visitation center. So she knew Mary Ann didn't have custody of the kid. But then again, if you remember in the coroner's report, Joyce Hammer didn't even know how many damn kids we had. She didn't even know how many kids came to her visitation center and walked through it. She tried to say that I had one daughter and 3 boys. I had 2 sons and a daughter. You're giving that right there a false statement.
Since getting the DNA confirmed in 2012, they have not conducted investigative work regarding the semen found on Mackenzie. Why? This is a huge lead that should have been followed up on immediately. Hard questions need to be asked. Lie detectors given to those in that home hours before the fire started need to happen. This could be, and most likely, why that fire was started. But why has this not happened? This would seem to be the most logical avenue to take. You know what would have been helpful, though, to have in addition to lie detectors is some clothing that we could get more DNA from. You know, Mackenzie's underwear, tank top, and socks. Unfortunately, that clothing, as we know, became wet, which nobody knows how, and the DNA that was there was degraded to the clothing becoming wet, which makes it harder to pull markers. The clothing was ultimately destroyed because it was stored incorrectly as well. The clothing had become moldy. I was curious why her body did not show any signs of trauma of sexual assault when Dr. Gay and Dr. Harshberger completed their examination, if there was semen present, and would this be a concern for law enforcement or prosecutors as it seems to be for Vernon? I reached out to Paul Holes to ask him about this and to see if he's ever seen this before in the cases he has worked. If you don't know Paul Holes, he is best known for his work in catching the Golden State Killer. Paul told me that he isn't concerned about not having trauma to the body. He has seen it before and it doesn't bother him at all. I also spoke with Kelly Siegler from the Cold Justice Show at this year's CrimeCon in Denver. As a prosecutor, I wanted to get Kelly's thoughts. Kelly's response? Not all that uncommon. As a prosecutor, she has gotten several convictions and she isn't bothered by this and not worried about not having any physical trauma. Kelly echoed the same thing Paul did. No 8-year-old gives consent. The semen in 3 areas was the trauma. This just tells me, honestly, that the perpetrator knew what they were doing to not get caught. Semen in an 8-year-old is trauma in and of itself, to me. I circled back with Vernon again about why Mackenzie was brought to the hospital, because for me, this is where it all started.
Dr. Gay came to the scene when they knew we had a fatality.
So he was there when Mackenzie was removed?
He would not have been there. They brought her out of the house, and we had already contacted him, but they had a fatal house fire to deal with. He was on his way when they brought her out. They carried her out and put her in the back of the ambulance. And Dr. Gay, when he arrived, we had a conversation. This is what we know at this point. I think he talked to Mary Ann, a cursory conversation, and then he did go inside the van, the squad. And that's when he decided, let's just take her to the hospital so I can examine her better there.
Did he pronounce her there at the scene?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the time of death that was in the back of the ambulance?
When he got there, or when they removed her from the house, whatever he determined. I don't know what he jotted down as the time of death, but he was there, and his first contact with Mackenzie would have been on the scene Dr. Gay said, I'm not going to do the examination here. I could go to the hospital at the hospital lighting and so forth. And it was also, you have a dead little 8-year-old girl, and the aesthetics of doing that kind of examination in the back of a life squad with everybody around. Dr. Gay said, let's just take her down to the hospital. And then we all met at the hospital. She was there for just a short period of time. And then he did his paperwork. Instead of doing it out on the scene, he was doing his paperwork there. He did a preliminary visual inspection of the body at the hospital, a cursory examination. He didn't do an autopsy, but he visually viewed the body. He took the clothing items off of her to some degree, didn't remove everything, but he shuffled things around, and he saw no signs of sexual assault. No lights and bells went off. I was in the room, and I had my detective in there, and it was obvious that the damage to her body was soot and heat.
Once again, it shows his stupidity again as a sheriff. He states that Dr. Gay told him he wouldn't do that kind of examination at the scene. Once again, to go way back to the beginning, he said they discussed this at the hospital of the sexual assault. So why would he be doing a sexual assault in the back of an ambulance? That makes no sense at all. And no coroner gets in the back of an ambulance and automatically starts doing their autopsy. That makes no sense right there.
Well, what he's saying is like he wasn't going to do it in the back of the ambulance, so that's why they took her to the hospital.
Okay, but then again, where we get him again is he's saying that he was in the back of the ambulance. Nobody saw Dr. The EMTs would have told you Dr. Gay was in the back of the ambulance, first of all. Second of all, no one else seen him, or there was nobody thought. Third of all, where Vernon, here he goes again, that's where he makes his mistakes, because he don't know what I have. He don't know the evidence I have. And the evidence I have shows Mackenzie arriving at the hospital, going through ER, going in, and Dr. Gay being there at a certain time. There's no way Dr. Gay is at the hospital and Mackenzie comes in and then be at the scene at that same time.
No, he was never there.
So there's one lie. Number two, I told you that before, Vernon pronounced her dead at the scene, not Dr. Gay. Dr. Gay didn't pronounce her dead. He pronounced her dead at the fucking hospital, not at the scene. And if you read his report, he would have said that. Pronounced her dead at the scene at this time.
Hold on a minute. If Dr. Gay did not take off her clothing, but shuffled them around, again, how did they get wet and removed and put into a bag when she went to Montgomery County? Vernon claims Dr. Gay was on scene to pronounce, but this is not what anyone else at the scene has said. EMS specifically told me that they called him and he said to bring her to the hospital. Dr. Gay's own report says he went to the scene at 4:30 a.m. and pronounced her at 2:30 a.m. If he was on scene, the time of death would have been closer to the 2 a.m. mark. Let's get back to the sexual assault, confirming the swabs being positive for DNA.
There was nothing to indicate sexual assault, nothing. But yet you had the test that showed up 6 years later, and every swab was positive, oral, vaginal. Now, you don't have an 8-year-old girl that's sexually assaulted to that degree and not have trauma. She had no trauma. The swabs are what determined that there was semen, because he didn't see anything to indicate any semen. He didn't see any tears, any trauma that you would have seen if there had been penetration to that little girl in any one of those areas. It would have been catastrophic trauma to that. So the question would be, where did the semen come from? The results may have been in that, but where was this stuff at? And I've always had that question. So that's why I say, did we really have a sexual assault? Now, Donald was convinced we did, because he wants it to be a sexual assault, because that perpetuates his story of the hatred he has for Mary Ann and the boyfriend, Kenny. He thinks Kenny sexually assaulted her, and he started the fire to cover up the rape. That's very plausible, except it's not his DNA.
So I want to start at the first part of this with the hospital and the clothing. He's saying that he's in there with another detective. They shuffle things around. The thing is that when they say that they remove some of the clothing, but not all of it, she didn't have on a ton of clothing. She had on 3 items. So that's another thing I want to point out there is that shuffling around clothes, she had on 3 items, and they were removed and put in a bag when they went to Montgomery County.
Right. That's how Montgomery County received them.
Correct.
Well, no. When she come to Montgomery County, she had her clothes on her. Because if you look at the autopsy pictures of Mackenzie at Montgomery County on the steel table, she has her clothes on. She don't have the socks on, but she has the panties on and the tank top on.
Oh, you're right. I asked Ken, and he thought they were in a bag.
No, they put them in a bag. Montgomery County did. Vernon said that Dr. Gay walked over to Mary Ann and had a few words with Mary Ann at the scene. Why ain't that in the report?
Because he got it from Joy.
He didn't talk to Mary Ann, because if he'd talked to Mary Ann, he'd have had that in the report.
Well, here's the reason why he didn't. Because he went to the scene after Mackenzie came to the hospital to him, and Mary Ann had already left the scene.
Yeah, she already left the scene. That's what I said. He is such a liar. He lied so bad. Because if Dr. Gay would have been at the scene, let's put him there. Let's put him at the scene. And he walked over and had a few words with Mary Ann, he would have had that in his coroner's report. I talked to the mother, I blah, blah. That's not what he said. He said, I talked to the sheriff, I talked to Joyce Stanforth, and he talked to the firemen, I think a couple firemen, and that's it. That's all he talked to. That's in his report. So, right there again, Vernon lied again. And then
I want to get to this big thing here that he said. A lot of listeners are struggling and are very pissed off with that you want this to be a sexual assault and no father or parent. I'll let you respond to that.
How do you respond to such a stupid ass? When I heard that sentence alone, pissed me off more than anything else he said through this whole thing. First of all, I never accused Kenny. When I found out about the sexual thing, all I said was, you had Jamie, you got William, and you got Kenny. Have they been tested for their DNA? Never did I bring up anything else, because I did not know about the sexual assault until I got the paperwork from Montgomery County. And people look back years ago when I was doing my YouTube videos, there was a guy that used to do the videoing, and he would always say, Mackenzie was raped, Mackenzie was raped. And I got pissed. And I said, quit saying my child got raped. I don't have that evidence. I don't have nothing to prove that that's what happened to her. And he stated that it came from the sheriff. That's why he kept saying it. And then I ended up firing the guy and saying, you're done. You're not doing no more, because I told you to keep the rape part out of your mouth during my YouTube videos, because I don't have the evidence to prove that that happened. Then all of a sudden, a few years went by and bam, that came out. That I always thought it was weird that this person knew about it and kept saying it and said it was told by the sheriff. And some of the viewers know the guy, Derek Meyer. How did he know this stuff before I did and before I got the paperwork about Mackenzie being raped?
When I heard that, and obviously me and Mary are sitting there, and he says this, that you want it to be this. I can't imagine as a father hearing that, or a mother hearing that. That is your worst nightmare. You could have the worst enemy in the world, and that is not what you want.
Right. And once again, that just shows the profession of that sheriff. That's how he thinks about anybody out here that has trauma that happens to their child. That's the kind of remark this piece of shit as a sheriff makes. Like I said, there's even a newspaper article And I went ape shit over it because Vernon never in that whole article pronounced Mackenzie as Mackenzie or little girl or 8-year-old. He considered her as an it. And people remember that. They remember when I brought that up. He kept calling Mackenzie an it. I-T. And they posted that in the paper as it. And I got pissed that you called her an it. Now I hear you tell Dog with a Bone that I wanted her to be sexually assaulted just to point my hatred more towards Marianne and Candy. Right. That just, I'm sorry, but people vote for something like that to be our sheriff, and all these other sheriffs out here support a sheriff that makes a comment like that about a father that just lost a child to a sexual assault and a fire. You don't deserve to be a sheriff. And that is something. That comment alone, I'm going to take, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to play just that comment at the end of this. And I'm going to say, here's the sheriff you vote in for 29 years.
Or he's diverting from what we're trying to talk about.
And that's what I'm saying. And I'll be honest with you, Melissa, I have requested Vernon's DNA to be tested too. I did.
Let's talk about that right now. Let me play about the DNA.
Get me all worked up.
But even though you got the 4 markers, you were able to rule out Kenny?
Yes. The Potters were also ruled out scientifically.
With that semen?
Yes.
So you can get it with 4 markers.
They know enough that it's not them. They don't know who it is, but they know it's not them. The S4 markers were not present. I'm just surmising that. I don't know the science behind it, but if we have these 4 markers and you have 11 here and none of these 4 match these 11.
Think about this, and everybody needs to really, really pay attention to this. If he stated there was 4 markers, he ruled out the Potter family, he ruled out Kenny Mossberg. Okay, fine. Let's say we accept that. Vernon, hey, we accept that. When you ruled them out, cool. But the people you ruled out were at that fire scene. So that tells me they know who it was, who the male was that was in that room. He said sexual assault. See, here he goes contradicting himself. Now he's back to sexual assault again. And he said we had 4 markers. We were able to take those markers and rule out the Potter family and rule out Kenny Mossberger. Right? That's what he stated.
I want to stop here for just a second and give a listener caution on what is to follow. Donald and I start to talk in real terms about the sexual assault and how the semen could have gotten on Mackenzie's body without penetration. Listener discretion is advised.
So if you're a detective and you're saying, okay, I ruled out the Potters, I ruled out William, and I ruled out Jamie, and I ruled out Jeremy, because those are the 3 Potter boys, even though they only got William's DNA, but they were able to rule out the other 2 brothers. That's what they're saying. Vernon just said there. Yep. And they ruled out Kenny Mossberger, and anybody related to Kenny Mossberger pretty much is ruled out. That's what he's saying. So you tested them. You ruled them out. It's Marianne and Kenny's house. They know the fuck male was in there between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. They would know who that male was that was in that house. So you ruled them out, but you still know they know who it was that was in there. So they're just as guilty as the person that raped my daughter, because that's who they're protecting. Because Kenny and Marianne and Jamie were all there till midnight. So they know who it was that was in their house having sex with my daughter. And back it up a little further, he talked about no trauma to the vagina. I asked Ken Arsberger about that, and this was the best question I asked him. I said, well, everybody keeps saying she didn't have no rips, tears, trauma. He said, Donald, I'll be honest with you, don't have to. If that person, I'm going to say exactly what he said. If that person's sitting there and he's jacking off and his semen goes all over his hand and he takes his finger and he said, exact words, Donald, I know you don't want to hear it, but I'm trying to explain it to you. I know this is going to be hard. And he takes his finger and puts it up inside my daughter. That semen's there from the finger. And if she's giving a blowjob, the semen's on her mouth. Doesn't mean he's going to put it in her mouth and it rips her smile. You know what I'm saying? Wide open. It's the same thing with a vagina. So he was explaining that to me. And he said, you're right. Yes, I can say she had a normal 8-year-old vagina, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a finger. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a small toy, something. You know what I'm saying? Anybody got on something, and that's how it got there. And for Vernon to sit there and say, well, that doesn't explain how it got there. That's why I'm questioning it. Bullshit.
There's another part of what he says that somebody else had pointed out is that he says vagina and orally, but he doesn't mention anal. And I find that interesting.
Yeah, you're right. And I already caught that too. When you asked him, he said vagina, and then he said the mouth.
And then he stopped.
He stopped. He didn't say buttocks.
He caught himself. But the other situation too is that men can jack off right over you in your body and get all up in that area.
Yeah, it down through the crack of your ass.
Right.
Ken Harshberger said it wasn't up inside of her. It was on the outside of her.
Yes.
And that's when he went in to explain that somebody could have jacked off and touched her and rubbed on her crotch area and the semen got on her.
If we go back to off-record comment made of semen found on
Her torso and her stomach. Right. Which would make sense of them trying to wash her, and that's why she was wet. Them washing it off there. I'm telling you, Vernon knows whose DNA it is. I would put it 110%. That son of a bitch knows who it is.
My concern is I haven't seen results that say that it was not William, nor have I seen results that Kenny was tested. But again, we know that she was sexually assaulted because Montgomery County found a Y chromosome. And when BCI exhumed her, and we'll talk more about that later, they found DNA as well that provided the markers. Semen does not appear on an 8-year-old. William refused to give his DNA and required the state of Kentucky to get an order for him to do it. Donald was tested even though he wasn't in the home that night and needed no court order. He was cleared. So whose DNA does this belong to? Marianne claims that she knew that child was never molested. Did someone rape Mackenzie while her and Kenny were at the bar? Kenny, Marianne, and William have not been given lie detectors regarding the sexual assault and the DNA found on Mackenzie's body, only for the fire. Is it possible that Mackenzie was given something to knock her out? We now know that Mackenzie was alive at the time of the fire with 68% of carbon monoxide in her system, which means the next layer that we need to dig out is to learn more about the fire, how it started, how long Mackenzie could have been alive before she died, and was she given something to prevent her from escaping?
William was tested, correct?
Yeah.
He was in Kentucky. Yeah. He needed a court order to do it. He refused. Yeah. They did it, and they said he was cleared. He didn't meet the 4 markers out of the 12.
Right.
You were tested. You were cleared. Do we have any proof that Kenny was tested?
No. Now, here's the thing. I didn't tell you, now that all this is coming up. I was at a building meeting with the commissioners, and Vernon walked in. And I asked him about my DNA. I really did. I said, Vernon, why did y'all get my DNA? And his exact words to me was, well, we wanted yours because your DNA would say Mackenzie is your daughter. She has this, she has that. He never said, well, because she was sexually assaulted. He played the other card saying they needed my markers. And I talked about William too. And he said, well, we got Williams because Williams will show he's an uncle. It'll show that he's the uncle through Mary Ann's genes. That's what he sat there and told me. This is before I found out about Mackenzie being sexually assaulted. This is before. This is right after they got my DNA. Because I didn't understand why they were collecting DNA. Then Detective Brown lied to me because he said they found DNA at the house. Like somebody spit or somebody left blood or something. I forgot to tell you that. But Vernon did. Of course, he's going to say, I don't remember that day. But we were standing right in the lobby of Job and Family Services when I asked him, and he was explaining why they got my DNA. And it was they wanted to make sure Mackenzie was my kid.
And didn't even mention it about the sexual assault.
Nope. Just that they wanted to make sure that I was the dad. That's what they said to me.
So you have not seen the results that it was not Kenny. We haven't seen anything like that.
He was the only one I got a hold of, and that's because the state police sent it to me. Because that cop that I talked to him, he was a hell of a guy, man. Oh my God, he was hilarious. He didn't like William. Oh, he didn't like William. He wanted to grab that son of a bitch by the throat. But here's the thing about William's DNA. We know, me and you, how many mistakes have been made with this crime. We know Detective Brown's dead, so you can't do nothing about him. But how do we know that when Detective Brown went and met the Kentucky State Police to pick up William's DNA, he didn't switch that out for somebody else's? I mean, we're proving that the sheriff's is a goddamn fucking cover-up. We can prove that. We can prove a lot of cover-up in this. So how do we know that just because he writes William Potter's name on a tube doesn't mean that's William Potter's DNA? Remember when I had that other interview with Vernon? And I said, since you got more markers of Mackenzie from BCI, why not run us all again? Well, we can't force nobody to come in and give us theirs. These lying goddamn cocksuckers. You can't. Just like we can't force people to take a lie detector test. You're right. You might not force it, but if they refuse it, if I say, see, we're not saying do it. Well, we want it done, but we're not saying do it. But if I went to William and said, hey, William Potter, we need you to come in and take another lie detector test. This one's going to be about this sexual assault on Mackenzie. And he says, fuck you, I ain't coming in. Guess who I'm going to look at?
Yeah. It's a tool. That's all it is. It's an investigative tool.
Amen. That's all it is. So it doesn't matter to me if you refused it. You need to be looked at. If you walk in there and say, yep, let's do it, and you pass, you ain't got nothing to worry about, right or wrong.
Right. And that's the thing, too. He has never been interviewed, questioned, none of them regarding the semen found. Nobody has.
That sexual part has never come up. It's always been just about the fire.
Thank you all so much for listening to these 2 bonus episodes and hearing for yourself Donald's own words and responses to Vernon's interview. There is so much in Vernon's interview that demonstrates even more, now than ever, that Mackenzie's case needs to be removed from Fayette County. And also, Fayette County needs to be held responsible for the parts that they played in the mishandling of this investigation. Dog with a Bone is hosted by Melissa Sandberg, investigated, produced, and written by Melissa Sandberg. Additional writing by Caitlin Sandberg. Edited by Jason Sandberg. Mixed and mastered by Morrow Mixing and Mastering. Theme music by Alex Yukich. Dog with a Bone is a Sat Squatch production.